So here's the setting of the story, Act 2. Miles and Josh met in the wilderness after they miraculously got out of a flash flood that washed them miles down a network of canyons. Their larger backpacks with most of their stuff were washed away. They are lost with only the few things they have in their day packs. Miles has allowed Josh to tell him God's story because there's nothing better to do, although he is slightly curious. In Act 1, Josh told Miles about creation and man's special place within it before calling it a night. The next day, Miles and Josh set out to find their way home. Trying to get to higher ground, they decided to climb up and out of the canyon. I've done that kind of thing before. That's tough. Ahead of Miles, Josh made it to the top without issue. Miles was right behind. As he approached the top, Josh extended his hand and asked Miles if he wanted help up. Miles refused. As he reached for the top, he slipped and fell a little ways down the hill. Though not a devastating fall, Miles hit his left arm pretty hard on a rock. Josh worked his way back down, and the two took to the shade of a few trees. We joined them as they check on Miles's arm.
How's it feeling? Is it broken? It
hurts like a mother. I wouldn't want to finish that statement in front of a pastor. It hurts. It doesn't look like anything's protruding, but it's clearly starting to swell.
Can I help you wrap
No,
that,
I
Miles?
got it. I don't need any help. I mean, knowing my luck, it's probably broken. Just like everything else in this world. I mean, you're telling me yesterday about how God created this beautiful place, right? How he took chaos and brought order to it and whatnot. But as I look at my arm here, all I think about is what we've endured already. You know, we've been washed down multiple canyons. Most of our stuff being washed away. We're left with minimal food and water. And we're lost in the middle of nowhere, and nobody is coming to look for us. You know, as I think about all that, I think about what I see around me, a broken world. You know, I see the destruction of the environment. I see hatred. I see violence. I see global fears. I see wars. I see crime. I see people attacking each other. I see people abandoning each other. I see people walking in bitterness. Racism. Financial problems left and right. Lost jobs. Being laid off. No work. How does that fit into your story, Pastor? I mean, I told you this was all utopian, unattainable. How does that reality fit into your story?
Well, Miles, why don't we recap where we left off in Act 1, the story of creation. See, there's God, and he comes up with this great plan. It's just this great plan for the universe. And he goes and he makes this canvas on which to paint the universe. And he starts, oh man, it is good. He puts all this detail and beauty in creation. Remember how he looked at the animals and the trees and the plants, and just the incredible beauty that's there? That God put all that there for us. As he did this, he had us in mind. So he creates everything else, and then he comes to man. He takes this special care in man. And then when he's finished and he sees that it's all good, he doesn't even stop there. See, the creation is ongoing, and God partners with man to continue to develop things. And as we left off, there they are partnering together, and everything is whole, harmonious. There's this peace, this shalom about everything. And that's where we left off in Act 1. Now let's pick up with Act 2. What should we call it? Let's call it broken. So as we pick it up, Adam and Eve are there in this incredible place that God has given them anything and everything they could have ever wanted or needed. He's built this beautiful garden for them. This great place where they had everything that they needed. Awesome food. Work that was enjoyable and pain-free. They were even able to eat of the tree of life. And after all this, he only gave them one restriction, just one thing that they could not do. Eat of a particular tree.
I never understood this part of that story. I mean, God creates this beautiful place for them, but he gives them one rule that might cause them to get in trouble. Why would he even risk that?
Let me ask you a question. Suppose I program my computer so that every time I boot up, it tells me how awesome I am. Now, can the computer really understand what it's saying? Can I really feel flattered by the fact that it says, "Hi, Scott, you're awesome"? Can we really build a bond through all of this? You see, if the computer doesn't have the ability to say that I'm not awesome, not that any rational being could possibly think that. If it doesn't have the ability to think that I'm not awesome, can it really think that I am? You see, so as we look at God and what he does here, he gives them an opportunity, an option to choose against, to not choose for him, so that they can choose him. I mean, he's given them all of these great reasons to choose him, to follow him, to love him. Why would they not? So there they are. We pick up the story as one day Eve finds herself near this tree, just like that one over there. She gets a little too close and she starts to look at it and wonder, I wonder what it feels like. I wonder what it tastes like. What might happen if I ate of that? And then this snake comes up and he asks her what's going on. He tempts her and says that if she eats of that tree, that she can be like God. So what does she do? Temptation got the best of her. So she looks up, she reaches up, and she picks a fruit off the tree. She holds it in her hands, feels it, admires its colors. She smells its aroma. And then finally, she takes a bite and tastes of this forbidden fruit.
What's so wrong with eating a piece of fruit?
Well, aside from the obvious fact that God told them not to, by eating of this fruit, Adam and Eve are saying that they want to be gods themselves.
And what's the problem with that? I mean, what's so bad about wanting to be like God? I mean, you said yesterday, God created us to be co-creators with him. He placed us above everything else. He put us in charge over everything. Why would we not want to be like God?
See, here's what's happening. By doing this, they're saying that this high role that God has given them, it's not good enough. That all that he's done for them, all that he's given them, that this partnership he set up with them, it's not good enough for them. They want more. See, they want to be free of anyone or anything that could stand in the way of what they wanted. They didn't want anyone to control them. They wanted to subvert God and take control of their own lives. So here they are, and they say, we want to be gods ourselves. We can do it ourselves. We don't need a guide on this journey. We don't need you. We don't want you. We don't trust you. We want to be in control. We want to be in charge. We want to write our own story. So they've chosen to written this story apart from God. They've left behind the story that he wrote for them. They've left behind this story of harmony, where they maintain healthy relationships, where they rule with care and justice, where they continue to create positive things, where they have this untainted fellowship with the Almighty God. It's not that these things are completely gone, but man finds himself continuing to choose to leave the story of wholeness and to write a story of brokenness. This is where all those things that you mentioned come into play. Man, it's all changed. All of a sudden, the world is flooded with shame, fear, anger, and distrust. They've left behind wholeness, and they perpetuate brokenness. Now strained relationships, pride, greed, and quest for dominance abound. Now they've got issues with boundaries. They've left the healthy boundaries that God set up for them. They're crossing lines that should not be crossed. They're stealing from one another for their own gain. They're traversing borders that can only lead to hurt. So they've left this place of harmony and entered into this place of pain. You see, we traded health for sickness, confidence for doubt, peace for war, humility for pride, generosity for selfishness, purity for sinfulness.
This is the Christian's favorite part, right? Y'all love to talk about sin and rub it in the faces of us sinners. I mean, is this the part? where you condemn me to hell and tell me what an awful person I am, right?
No. On the contrary, this is my least favorite part. The saddest part. This isn't something to celebrate. This is something to lament. Remember those things you were talking about earlier? The brokenness that fills our world, the pain that we experience, the ways that people don't get along with one another. These things suck. They're tough. They hurt.
I agree. But why are you people so intent on continuing to dwell on these things?
You see, to gloss over these things would be to live outside of the reality of our lives. We've got to talk about these things. To ignore them would be to live in denial. Let's look at this from God's perspective for a few minutes. Perhaps that'll help us better understand what's going on here. Imagine you're God for a few minutes.
I like where this is going.
I figured. There you are. You come up with this great plan for the world. You design this awesome thing. You paint this beautiful creation. And you get to man. And you take extra special care. You create him distinctly and uniquely from anything else. You breathe your own breath into him. And it doesn't stop there. You equip him, and you call him into this special role of care and charge over all of creation. And then you partner with him. You partner with him to continue to develop the creation. Everything's just come together and it's whole and harmonious. And you look at it and you're like, oh man, it is good. Every single day you delight in those people. You love to watch them live, create, and play. Your favorite thing in the world to do is to interact with them, to build relationship with them, to look and see what they make of the potential that you have given them. You have fallen completely in love with these people. They mean the world to you. But then one day, one tragic day, they make this decision. And they say, what you offer isn't good enough for us. It's not enough. What you've done for us, what you offer us, it's not enough. We don't want your partnership anymore. I mean, can you imagine? There you are, and you've given them everything. And it's not enough. All of a sudden, the relationship has massive cracks in it.
I'd say so.
Yeah. As if this isn't enough. As if this broken relationship isn't enough to break your heart. You have to watch your children as they suffer. Now they feel shame. They feel pain. They doubt themselves. They fight with each other, hurt one another. Trust is gone. anger and bitterness devour them. Can you imagine? They're no longer focused on giving to one another, but instead are grabbing for themselves. The reality of life has been forever altered. And moreover, now you have to watch your creation, your children, as they die. See, sickness and death have now been introduced into this world. Every day you watch as they inch closer and closer to death. Your children are dying. And you're distant from them, and you have to stand by and watch as they reject you and all that you've done and all that you have to offer them. Now, as the creator, you're utterly devastated. Words are terribly inadequate to capture how much this hurts you.
Hurt? I never thought about it like that before. I mean, who would have thought that God could feel hurt? I mean, I always focused on his anger, not his pain.
The really sad thing is that it doesn't end there. It's not like it was just a one-time thing, or that it stopped with these two people. Brokenness continued. Cracks grew. Pain increased. And if what Adam and Eve had to go through themselves wasn't enough, they had to watch as this brokenness affected their own children. See, they had two sons whose relationship was forever affected by jealousy. The one felt so frustrated, so inferior, got so angry that one day he lashed out in his jealousy and he killed his own brother.
He killed his own brother? That's messed up.
Yeah, that's not the end of it. Things kept getting worse. Man had left God's story and was writing a story of self-interest and wickedness. See, in this story, it got to the point where all that man thought about was evil. Every last thought. Evil. How far has man gotten from what God intended? There's no longer relationship. They weren't interacting together anymore. They didn't think about him. This God that had done everything for them and loved them so much was forgotten and ignored. They'd left the story where harmony, care, and love of neighbor abounded, and took up a story of division, hatred, and greed.
Chalk one up for the evil side on this one, right? I mean, isn't that just the ebb and flow of the universe? I mean, don't things just balance themselves out? I mean, don't good and evil just cancel each other out in the end? I mean, isn't it like Star Wars? Balancing the Force? Good versus evil, Sith versus Jedi?
As much as I like that story, that's not the story here. There's no dualism here. This isn't two equal sides that balance out the scale. In fact, I'm not even sure there's a comparison at all. It's more like the light and darkness that we talked about yesterday. There is darkness, but it stands no chance against the light. Once light comes, darkness has no hope. So as you mentioned, good and evil, or as this story talks about God and the enemy, it's totally lopsided. There's no comparison here. The enemy stands no chance. Now, He may be able to inflict damage and cause problems in this world for a time. But one day, God will come and he will destroy him. The outcome's not even in question. But the really sad thing is that the people choose the losing side. They decide to write their own story, encouraged by the enemy. And the darkness is so pervasive. To say that things spiral downward and become broken is quite the understatement.
So why didn't God just wipe them out? I mean, why not kill them? I mean, if the world was so bad, why not destroy them or leave them to destroy themselves? I mean, if I was God, that's what I would have done.
You know, he actually thought about that.
Wait. Seriously? God actually felt that.
Yeah. He did. He looked over this world that had gotten so far from what he intended. And he thought about wiping it out. He felt deeply sorry that he had created them. He actually grieves as a result. His creation, his children, have ceased to be what he intended them to be. The image of God that was in them is now muddied, almost imperceptible. It's as if he's lamenting the loss, the death even, of these children that he cared so deeply about. See, his heart ached because they abandoned the story that he had written for them. So as he processes all of this, he actually decides to wipe them out.
Hold on. I thought you said there were 8 acts to this story. Clearly it can't end right here. I mean, what happened? I mean, did God just hit the reset button and decide to start over?
No, he doesn't just reboot and start over. Despite his grief, despite the evil that had taken over, despite his pain, despite how far they had gotten away from his plan, God still saw hope.
So what did he do?
See, he still knew that they had potential, that the image of God was in them, that the breath of life was still in them, and there was one man. There's one man left who still loved the Creator, Noah. See, Noah held on to the story. He embraced partnership. He loved to co-create. And he desired harmony and wholeness. So God decides to stick with man. And again, he does so through partnership. He partners with Noah to make this huge boat on which he can preserve both the animals and man. You see, this boat, this ark, it becomes a shelter from the storm, a light in the darkest of times. It's a beacon of hope. Let me see your arm. You see, God actually wiped out a lot of people. But he saw hope in Noah. Hope for mankind. He didn't choose just to start over, to throw it all away. He chose to stick with them. He chose to invest in them. He chose to see the best in them. He chose to redeem.
God cared for people in this world that much. If that God truly existed, that might be a God that I can relate to. I see a world where we break things and we just throw them away. Our society is so wasteful. When something doesn't work for us, we just get rid of it. Instead of fixing things that are broken, we throw them away in the trash, pile them in landfills, dump them in the ocean. What interests me about what you're saying is that it seems that God doesn't just throw stuff away the moment something seems wrong with it. He still sees their value. He still sees hope. He still sees that they can be restored.